when Eric was murdered by NYPD in 2014, after I sat and I cried for a while, I says, no, this is not going to get it. We are going to get out here. I'm going to get out here, and we're going to get something done. We got to wake up America. We got to make America uncomfortable like we've been uncomfortable for over 400 years.
Powerful words from the mother of Eric Garner, Gwen Carr, who less than 2 weeks later was on site with Governor Andrew Cuomo when he signed New York's Say Their Name reform laws, which, among other things, bans chokeholds like the one that killed her son. Ms. Carr is a member of a club no one wants to join. Black mothers whose sons have been killed by the police. Mothers like Diallo, whose son Amadou Diallo was killed in 1999 by 4 NYPD officers who fired their guns at Amadou 41 times. He was unarmed and reaching for his wallet when police opened fire. All 4 police officers were charged with second-degree murder, but a jury found them not guilty. And joining me now is Diallo, president of the Amadou Diallo Foundation, Gwen Carr, Eric Garner's mom, and author of This Stops Today. And Reverend Mark Thompson, a social justice activist and podcast host of Make It Plain with Mark Thompson. Thank you all for being here. It's always an honor to talk with you, Mrs. Diallo and Mrs. Carr. I've seen you at various events where you have shown up for other moms and other dads, other parents and family members of murdered young people. And so you've always been wonderful in giving of yourselves that way. I want to start with you, Diallo. This is a Newsweek piece. It's called Who Was Amadou Diallo and Why is the Story of His Death Still Relevant? And this is a quote from then President Bill Clinton. I don't pretend for a moment to second-guess the jury, but I know most people in America of all races believe that if it had been a young white man in an all-white neighborhood, it probably wouldn't have happened. I think a lot of people actually do second-guess these juries. Why do you, do you think anything has changed in the way an average jury will look at a police shooting now in the wake of what we've seen with George Floyd and all these protests?
Thank you for having me, Joy. I am so honored to be talking in this platform with Gwen Carr, who is a sister, and we belong to this club that no one wants to be part of. Since Amadou was killed 21 years ago, my life has changed forever. And I traveled these roads, and I met so many grieving families. In fact, I attended the funeral for Eric Garner. Nothing has changed. Changes was implemented, but then it was like a Band-Aid, just to try to pretend that we're going to have the in-depth change that the community asks for, the people ask for, and we've seen the proof. How many people have been killed since Amadou? How many? How many have been victimized, like my child? So changes has not happened, and we need more changes. And right now, people are up since George Floyd killing, and it has galvanized the whole world. In fact, in America, the young people today are protesting and demanding that we should have the change that we've been waiting for since 21 years ago and even before.
And can I ask you to stay with you for just one moment? You know, one of the things that hasn't changed is the attitude of certain parts of government toward police versus toward these victims. You know, Donald Trump's reaction to these police killings sounds a lot to me like Rudy Giuliani's, quite frankly, when he was mayor of New York. Is that symmetry just in my head, or do you see that same symmetry?
Me or Ms. Diallo?
Is it
Diallo.
It's for me?
Oh, Ms. Diallo.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
What I have to say, I'm speaking from the perspective of a mother who has lost her child. I think that politics is politics to handle this situation like politics as usual.
And I think I think we're losing Mrs. Diallo's audio, so I'm going to hold off on Mrs. Diallo. I think we're going to fix your audio first. I want to go to Gwen Carr. And I want to play for you yourself speaking about your push for justice. And this is on the next steps that you have said you want to see in terms of criminal justice reform. Take a listen, or police reform. Oh, okay, let me just read it. Last week, I stood alongside Governor Cuomo as he signed a measure reversing an odious law that has kept police disciplinary records sealed from the public for decades. The repeal of this 50A is particularly significant for me because of how challenging it was to get the police records that I needed to demand accountability for Eric's death. And Governor Cuomo has signed the Save Their Name Reform Act. You were in attendance. It provides transparency for disciplinary records, no chokeholds. False race-based 911 reports would then be a crime, and the Attorney General as an independent prosecutor for police murders. Are these changes that you think will decrease the number of black men and women and, unfortunately, children who die at the hands of police? Gwen.
Well, we hope so. And thank you for having me, Joy. But we hope that there will be a change because of these laws. We fought hard, the mothers of New York, we fought hard for these laws to be passed. And we just hope that since the bill has been signed, we need those legislators' feet held to the fire so that they can enforce these. A bill will be no good if they're not enforced. So going forward, we are going to try to see to it that the lawmakers keep their promise.
Yeah. And, you know, for you, the George Floyd case had to have been particularly difficult because, you know, I Can't Breathe became the thing that we so associated with your beloved son. And here we are again. What do you make of the fact that police are not responding to the outrage with changed behavior?
No, because nobody is holding them accountable. If their superiors would hold them accountable, it wouldn't be so much killing, so much brutalizing and terrorizing in our neighborhoods. And so that's why we need laws changed. The people are marching. It's like a boomerang. When my son was murdered, the marching was out there also. There was millions and millions of people marching all around the nation, even in other countries. And then the cameras went away, the people went away. But even when the people and the cameras go away, we have to keep on doing what we're doing, because if we want laws changed, we can't depend on anyone except ourselves and the ones who stand behind us after the cameras are gone. So we know that marching is just to bring awareness about there's a problem. But after the marching, we have to have legislation. So this is what we're hoping to get now.
And Mark, to you on that, I asked Senator Booker about that because you have the Senate Republicans lining up, a lot of whom are up for re-election behind Tim Scott, who essentially is offering nothing. And they're using him as a human shield to essentially say you get nothing. What do you make of that? Some of these Republicans are in vulnerable spots, but they are still insisting that all these activists get nothing.
Well, thank you for having me, Joy. And let me just say, it's always an honor to be with these mothers. I can't help but get emotional when I hear their voices, because they both walked away from their own sons' tombs the way the first women who preached the gospel walked away from Christ's tomb. Still preaching good news, still trying to keep us motivated and organized even when the cameras go home. What the Republicans are offering, you're right, is absolutely nothing. They still seem to be controlled by the campaign donations of the Fraternal Order of Police, and particularly those Fraternal Order of Police unions in local communities. That is why we've got to be more disciplined than to only have a movement on social media. The struggle is in the local communities where the police are truly governed and overseen in the local community. So people are going to have to get their hands dirty locally. And that's not always very popular or very sexy, but that's what is going to be necessary. We're going to have to build on the allyship of the international community that's with us. We're going to have to ask the international community, Joy, to treat America the way the international community treated South Africa. And the African countries just this week were beat down They stood their ground on a commission of inquiry in the human rights community, Human Rights Council. The European nations said, no, we're going to just settle for a report. But that's still enough that we can at some point say that if you don't shame America, if America, you don't change, we're going to ask the international community to possibly divest from America the way we had to do with South Africa. And then lastly, and thank you, Joy, for moderating our reparations forum last night. And I heard you talk to the senator about that. This is reparations. The H.R. 40 now that exists deals with the vestiges of slavery, including Jim Crow lynchings, voter suppression, and modern-day police lynchings. And for those who say the reparations struggle isn't for all across the diaspora, the NYPD didn't wait to find out whether Amadou Diallo was a direct descendant of an enslaved ancestor. And so even our sisters and brothers from all over the world who are treated this way, they're treated this way because we all share the same blood and the same DNA. And so when we talk about reparations, it has to include any of us who is impacted by these vestiges like Amadou Diallo.
And I will note that George Floyd's brother did testify at that Human Rights Council hearing. And I'm going to give Kadiatou Diallo, I believe we have your audio back, so I'm going to give you the last word, ma'am.
Yes, Joy, I'm sorry about the audio. What I want to say is that when the governor signed those bills, those were efforts with all families, like over 20 families in New York City, including grassroots organizations that rallied and demanded those laws to be applied. But it's not just the laws. It's also about people's mindset to open their heart and understand. And the whole criminal justice system needs to be revisited because you have millions of victims serving in prison, and their life and families' life has been altered forever. We will not give up because our children should not die in vain. And these laws that have been proposed right now and implemented is just not enough. Communities are asking for more changes, and communities are asking for funding to develop programs so that the police cannot be first responders in New York City and nationwide. I think the dialogue have to continue, and I thank you for having us today. We will continue to do the work, and I hope that the young people will connect with us because they are the driving force of this movement today.
Kadiatou Diallo and Gwen Carr, it is always an honor to speak with you. Your children should still be here. Thank you for fighting for all of our children. My friend, Mark Thompson, Reverend Mark Thompson, Reverend Dr. Mark Thompson. I'm going to give you a Reverend Doctor this morning. Thank you so much for being here and for all the hard work that you do, particularly on the reparations issue. Thank you all.